How could I have known that the young man who helped me fix my bookshelf would step into my home and bring a new sense of warmth to my life? I had been living alone for years, finding comfort in my routine, unaware that a simple act of kindness would lead to an unexpected friendship. Let me take you back to how it all began. I'm Olivia, 58 years old, divorced for nearly 2 decades. My home had become my sanctuary, filled with memories and small comforts that I had collected over the years. It was a quiet life, predictable in its solitude, until one afternoon when I went to buy a new bookshelf for my reading nook. That's when I met Ryan. Ryan was friendly and eager to help when he saw me struggling with the heavy package at the store. Seeing my hesitation, he smiled and said, "Let me help you with that." I appreciated his kindness and accepted his offer. Once we reached my house, I invited him in for a quick break before he left. I didn't expect him to stay long, but as he glanced around my home, he noticed my extensive collection of books and art pieces. "You have a great space here," he said with a curious yet respectful tone. I nodded with a small chuckle. "Thank you. I've spent a lot of time making it feel like home." He smiled. "It really shows. Everything here feels so personal, like it's all been put together with care." His words surprised me. It had been a long time since someone truly noticed my home that way. There was something warm about his presence, something genuine that made me feel at ease. We spent the next hour assembling the bookshelf, talking about books, travel, and life. He was curious about my experiences, and I was intrigued by his perspective. There was no awkwardness, just 2 people from different walks of life sharing a conversation. As we finished, we stood back and admired our work. "Looks perfect," he said. Then, after a slight pause, he added, "You really know how to make a space feel welcoming." I smiled, feeling an unexpected warmth at his words. "That means a lot." "Thank you." Before he left, he hesitated at the door. "If you ever need help with anything else, I'd be happy to come by." I appreciated the offer more than I could express. "That's very kind of you. I just might take you up on that." As he walked away, I realized that my quiet world had been stirred in a way I hadn't expected. It wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic changes. It was about a simple, unexpected connection that made the day feel just a little brighter. And sometimes that's all we really need. The following week, I found myself thinking about our conversation. I had spent so much time in my own company that I had almost forgotten what it felt like to talk freely with someone, to share stories and laughter. I decided to take him up on his offer. I sent him a quick message asking if he could help me with a small home project. He responded almost instantly, saying he'd be happy to come by. When he arrived, he greeted me with the same warm smile. This time, he seemed more comfortable, like he belonged here. We spent the afternoon fixing an old cabinet I had been meaning to repair for ages. As we worked, we shared more stories about our childhoods, about the people who had shaped us, and about the dreams we still carried. It felt natural, easy, like reconnecting with an old friend I had never met before. After we finished, I made us both a cup of coffee, and we sat in the cozy corner of my living room, talking until the sun dipped below the horizon. The silence between us was comfortable, not awkward, filled with the unspoken understanding that we both enjoyed each other's company. "I never thought I'd spend my evening like this," Ryan admitted, looking at me with a thoughtful expression. "But I'm glad I did." I nodded, feeling the same. Sometimes life surprises you in the best ways. As he left that night, I realized something had shifted inside me. Maybe it was the warmth of his presence or the simple joy of sharing a conversation with someone who truly listened. Either way, I knew this was only the beginning of an unexpected friendship. Over the next few weeks, Ryan visited a few more times, always eager to lend a hand whenever I needed it. But beyond the small projects, it became clear that we simply enjoyed each other's company. We found excuses to meet, whether it was rearranging my bookshelves, trying out a new recipe together, or just sitting on the porch watching the sunset in quiet appreciation of the moment. One evening, as we sat outside with mugs of warm tea, Ryan turned to me with a serious expression. "You know, Olivia, I've always been surrounded by people my age, but talking to you, hearing your stories, it's different. I feel like I learn something every time we talk." His words touched me in a way I hadn't expected. And I feel the same, Ryan. You remind me of the excitement and possibilities that life still holds. Several months had passed, and the time I spent with Ryan had become an unexpected yet delightful part of my life. Each visit brought a new energy to my home, as if even the quiet corners were coming alive. Our moments together were no longer limited to small projects. Sometimes we'd share long conversations over a cup of tea, and other times we'd flip through my old photo albums, breathing life back into memories I'd tucked away. Seeing my own life through his eyes filled me with both nostalgia and hope. One day, Ryan showed up at my door with a small box in his hands. "I brought you something," he said, a playful smile lighting up his face. When I opened it, I found an old weathered copy of Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. The pages were slightly yellowed, the corners worn, but that only added to its charm. "I found it at a secondhand bookstore," he explained. "Last week, when we were talking about books, you mentioned how much you loved this one. I couldn't resist." I ran my fingers over the cover, a lump forming in my throat. "Ryan, this is so thoughtful. I can't believe you remembered." He shrugged, his smile softening. "It's nothing. I just thought it belonged here. With you." That small gesture stayed with me long after he left. It wasn't just about the book. It was the way he paid attention, the way he saw me. Not as the solitary woman I'd become, but as someone with stories worth cherishing. I placed the book on my newly assembled bookshelf, right where I could see it every day. A quiet reminder of how much had changed since that first afternoon. As the seasons shifted, so did our routine. One crisp autumn evening, I suggested we take a walk through the park near my house. The leaves were turning shades of amber and crimson, crunching under our feet as we strolled. Ryan seemed quieter than usual, lost in thought. "Everything okay?" I asked, glancing at him. He nodded, then hesitated. "Yeah, I've been thinking a lot lately, about how much I look forward to coming here, to talking with you." I smiled, touched by his honesty. "I feel the same way. You've brought something special into my life, Ryan. Something I didn't even know I was missing." He stopped walking and turned to face me, his expression earnest. "You know, I've always been the kind of person who moves fast. New friends, new places. But with you, it's different. It's slower, steadier. I feel grounded." His words hung in the cool air between us, and for a moment I didn't know what to say. Then I reached out and gave his arm a gentle squeeze. "I'm glad you feel that way, because I found something steady in you too." We continued our walk in comfortable silence, the kind that doesn't need to be filled with words. The sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow over the trees, and I couldn't help but think how life has a way of surprising you. I'd spent years building walls around my quiet world, convinced I was content within them. But Ryan, with his easy smile and genuine curiosity, had slipped past those walls without even trying. When we got back to the house, I made us hot cocoa, and we sat by the window watching the last of the daylight fade. "You know," Ryan said after a sip, "I think this is what people mean when they talk about home. Not just a place, but a feeling." I looked at him, the warmth of the mug seeping into my hands. "I think you're right. And I'm starting to feel it again. Because of you." That night, as he left with a wave and a promise to come by soon, I stood at the door a little longer than usual. The house was quiet once more, but it didn't feel empty. It felt full of memories, of laughter, of a friendship that had grown in the spaces I'd once kept closed off. And as I turned off the lights and headed to bed, I knew that this chapter of my life, unexpected as it was far from over.